Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Good morning. Welcome, friends, to This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. My name is Macy, and I am so excited to have you joining me for today's episode. If you're a brand new listener, welcome to the podcast. I hope you get everything you need and more. And if you're a returning listener, as always, thank you for being here. So we're going to jump into today's topic really soon, but I do want to share just a few things. So if you're not interested in the few little things that I'm going to share real quick, feel free to fast forward just a few minutes and you'll get straight to the content. But I do want to ask a few things. I want to ask that if you have been a long-time listener, or if you've even been a client of mine at any point in my career, and you have not left a Google review yet, if you wouldn't mind if you could go do that. It's more helpful to me than you probably even realize. It helps the algorithm, it helps people find me, and also it gives people something to actually read whenever they do find me or search for a coach on Google. So if you have been a client and you've never left one, just share your coaching experience and working together. And if you are a podcast listener, you haven't worked together with me, just share what your learning or your experience has been in listening to the podcast. I will make sure to put the link in the show notes so you can easily find it. But if you're looking for it and you go to macyrenee.com, it will be under my podcast tab. So it'll be under This Is Not Your Practice Life. You just click that tab and you'll see a little button that says leave a Google review. You'll also see it when you go right to macyrenee.com. It leads to the same place. So if you don't mind doing that, that would be incredible. Again, it helps more than you know. The second thing I want to say is I'm really excited. Here in less than really a week, I will be heading to Florida 30A for the second round of Hybrid Experience. Their retreat is almost here. I am so excited. So if you do not follow me on Instagram, that's where I'll be sharing a lot of our experience. So if you want to follow along and see everything that happens at one of my retreats, make sure that you follow me on Instagram. It's Macy Renee Coaching. That link is also usually in the show notes, or you can just search the username and you'll find me. All right, you guys, a few weeks ago, I asked my audience on Instagram what they wanted to hear, and I received so many episode suggestions, and I have been trying to get through them all and make sure that every single person who wrote something in has been taken care of. So this week, the topic that I want to cover is where someone wrote in, what does it actually mean to have your own back, or how do you actually have your own back? If you've been listening to this podcast a while, you've probably heard me use this language a lot. I frequently talk about the difference it makes in your life when you know how to have your own back. But I've never actually done a podcast to break down everything that I mean whenever I am saying this. So I love that someone asked. I'm going to break it down for you today. I'm going to talk about it, and then you can determine how well you're doing in having your own back. So one of the things that I thought would be easiest whenever I was reflecting on how do I want to make this the most easy, digestible way that someone can understand what it means to have their own back. And what came to my mind is to talk about the opposite, right? What does it actually look like when we don't have our own back? So there are multiple ways that this can show up. And I'm going to give you just a sliver of examples for the different ways that this can show up. I'm going to break it down in different categories. And then that way you can kind of see where you're falling in each of them. Okay. So I'm going to go through each category starting with mental and emotional health. What will it look like for someone who maybe doesn't have their own back mentally and emotionally? One of the first things I'll say that I see clients struggle with in their mental and emotional health is how they treat themselves. And this can show up in different ways, but a lot of times when it comes to your mental and emotional health, it will be how you talk to yourself. What things your brain brings up in your mind that you believe to be true and that you perseverate on, even if it's not serving you. It can be how you talk to yourself. Are you someone that tends to talk negatively to yourself or talk negatively about yourself? How do you treat yourself? Do you practice a lot of self-love and gentleness and giving yourself grace? Or do you tend to beat yourself up and say, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not enough, I don't feel like enough? This to me is a form of self-sabotage. And whenever we're not having our own back, this is what will come of that. It's this very difficult place to be in, but it just often comes with feeling stuck and feeling trapped in our mind and not knowing how to pull ourselves out of it or pull ourselves through it. So when we're lacking that ability to have our own back, these are some of the ways it'll show up. It's really going to show up in how you treat yourself, how you feel about yourself, how loving you are toward yourself, how gentle or how graceful you are. And the opposite of this, when you have your back in this way, you're really going to be practicing self-awareness. You're going to be working on, like, you're going to have this desire to better yourself. You're going to have this desire to see what's not working in your life, but not only see it, but actually do something about it. That's a part of having your own back. It's like this awareness of, I see that certain things are not working. And maybe I've tried a bunch of different things that I thought were going to help. And maybe those things did to an extent. Maybe I need more. Or maybe I haven't tried everything and I need to explore what things will help me. So there is this willingness to better yourself, to see what else is possible, to treat yourself differently, to try new things, to pull yourself out of that self-sabotage and, the way that maybe you're living currently that just isn't serving you for where you're trying to go and the results that you're wanting to create. So that's what I would say as far as mentally and emotionally, how to know if you're having your own back or not. If you resonate with, I talk down to myself and I don't treat myself well. I don't, I often just notice my brain focusing on its limiting beliefs, or, I talk down to myself a lot, or I don't even believe in myself, or I don't even know who I am. If that is the narrative that goes through your mind most frequently, it means you maybe don't have your back as strongly as you can. Or it could be that you're just in the process of working through that and there are different ways it's showing up and you're working on bettering how you show up for yourself in that way, okay? Next, let's talk about physically. What does it look like when we don't have our own back physically? A lot of times, this will be knowing what we need to do or having a desire for what we want to do and we're not doing it. So maybe we self-sabotage in the way of, like, I'm overeating, I'm over drinking, I'm not being kind to my body, I'm not moving my body, I'm not, treating my body the way that it deserves to be treated. It could even be I'm shaming my body. I talk down towards my body. I don't like the way that I look or the way that I feel in it. I constantly degrade it. I won't look at myself when I pass a mirror. I don't acknowledge it. I don't like being in it. It could even be around forgiveness of, if you've experienced any kind of sexual abuse or any trauma in that way. Like for a lot of women too, they'll have kind of unhealed wounds that maybe haven't been acknowledged or addressed. And maybe it's even that they don't feel like they can be fully intimate or fulfilled with like a current partner, even if that partner feels totally safe for them, like they struggle, really being connected to their body. So this can be a way that we're not fully having our own back from a physical sense. It's like, what are we putting in our body? How are we treating our body? How are we talking to it? Are we nourishing it? Are we giving it what it needs? Do we love on ourselves, or are we doing all of the opposite things? So you'll be able, just by listening to those different examples, to know, do you have your own back when it comes to the physical aspect of your life? All right, let's move on to another one. Let's talk about financial/career. When we don't have our back in this place, this is just my perspective and what I see a lot of times for my clients. This is like the abandonment of going after your dreams, your purpose, like letting your limiting beliefs control everything that you believe is possible for your life, or the, inability to feel like you can make changes. So it may be that you show up to the same job, doing the same thing over and over and over again, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and yet you're unhappy. You don't feel like you're living your purpose. You don't feel thrilled to be doing it. You might feel grateful that you have the position. You might feel grateful you're able to provide and, keep a roof over your family's head, keep food on the table, have health insurance, some vacation time here and there. But when you really get to the soul level of it, there's something in your spirit that's just saying, is this it? Is this it? And have I explored all of my options here? If there's this desire, like I want to make more money, have you explored the options of how that's possible? If you want more time to be with your family, to take off work, to not have someone dictating your schedule, to, have a little bit more time freedom in your life for whatever reason you want, have you actually acknowledged that and explored that and tried to problem solve and find solutions? And if the answer is no, why not, right? That would be an example of having your own back. What am I doing to better this area of my life? What am I doing to actually make changes instead of living in the internal suffering and the story of this is never going to change, I'm safe where I'm at, or I need to keep this forever, or it would be too hard. Like there's so many things that will keep people stuck in this way, but it's not actually because they're physically stuck. It's often because they don't have the mental and, not so much the mental, but like the mindset skills or tools and the emotional intelligence tools to be willing to feel the feelings of having their own back and moving through the process of problem solving how they're going to get themselves to the other side. Okay, so if you have your own back in this area, because you're maybe, researching some different things that you would like to do. You're applying for different things you would like to do. You're dreaming about different things that you would want to do. You're taking action on those things. You're taking, steps to get yourself closer to that. And even when it looks like a failure or you do experience failure, instead of giving up and quitting, it would be getting back up again, and then getting back up again. And so again, if we have not developed the skill of having our own back, what we will experience instead is this feeling of I'm very stuck in this area. I don't feel like I can ever have more money or ever make more money or get myself out of the financial debt or the financial situation I'm in. I don't feel like I'll ever be happy in my career. I don't know if I'll ever find my purpose. I'll probably just settle the rest of my life. If that's the kind of language that you're using and what's going through your mind, then you haven't learned how to have your own back when it comes to your financial or career life. Okay. Now let's go into the aspect of relationships. And with relationships, this can be romantic, it can be family, it can be friends. So let's talk about what it looks like if we don't have our own back in this area. Most times, I'm just going to talk from the experience of what my clients bring to me most often, but this is not an exhaustive list. This is definitely not all the ways it can show up. I'm sure there are dozens more that I will forget, even in the few things that I, thought about in wanting to talk about with this episode. The biggest things that come up in relationships when it comes to lack of having our own back is our lack of boundaries. Okay, so a lot of times if you're letting people treat you however they want to treat you and you're not okay with it, but you're not speaking up for yourself, you're not communicating your needs, you are not setting boundaries and then honoring your boundaries, this is going to be the lack of having your own back. For romantic relationships, it could be settling for less than you deserve, right? If you have someone who's maybe talking down to you, treating you poorly, not supportive of you, like just, beating you down emotionally, mentally, can even be physically, right? If you're accepting of that, then it can be an example of not having your own back. So the opposite of this, when you know you're having your own back, it's really being able to feel fulfilled in all of your relationships. You feel like your interpersonal connections are really strong, you're happy with them. Or even if they're not strong and it's just people that you're going to have to coexist with for various reasons. Let's say you're divorced, you have to coexist with your ex, even though you would prefer it not to be that way because you have children that you all share and you all trade off weekends or weeks, with that person. You can't ever change another person, but how you have your own back in this category is to make sure you're communicating what you need to be communicating or what you want to be communicating in the most emotionally intelligent way. That you don't put up with just anything because you think you have to, that you have boundaries in place, and that ultimately you really do feel like even if they are who they are, it doesn't negatively wash over you and have strong power to ruin your day, to ruin your mood, to ruin your experience. Those are the biggest thing with our relationships. Here's the deal. I'm going to break this down a little bit. Our Creator designed us to be energetic beings, right? Everything in the world holds an energy that we cannot see. It's kind of like a magnet. You can't see the force that exists between those two items until they're drawn together. And we as humans are very much like that. Have you ever walked into a room and you can literally cut the tension like a knife? I have walked into rooms before where it's maybe a couple and I know that there was probably an argument or, a fight between that couple before walking into that room because you can feel that something's off. Even if they don't, tell you all the details of oh yeah, hi, we just had an argument, because most people keep that private. You can read the energy of a room. It can be felt. So what that means is, especially if you're an empathetic person and you already kind of feel into people's energies anyways, or you're hyper vigilant because you grew up in trauma, so you tend to read energies really well for that reason as a protective mechanism, doesn't really matter. Between all of that, we are connected to other people's energy. And that means if we allow it, people can rub off on us when we're not in our power. So when it comes to relationships, having your own back is really deciding, what do I want out of this relationship? Do I feel happy and fulfilled? And this is, again, romantic, friendship, family. And if there's anything that I'm not cool with, am I communicating that? Am I being honest about that? Am I setting boundaries for that? Do I have my own back in that way? If something's not working for me, do I remove myself from the situation with emotional intelligence, not ugliness, not, inner child, immature behavior, but like, am I actually being an adult and moving about my relationships in the most emotionally intelligent way? That would be having your own back. The opposite would be maybe fighting with people a lot, getting caught in drama cycles, begging for people to change and trying to control other people. It can be sneaky manipulation. I really want you to be this so that I don't always feel awful. I don't feel bad. There are so many ways that this can show up in our relationships. And what we have to remember is that when we have our own back, we aren't trying to get anybody else to be different than who they are. We're learning how to make sure our needs are met and that we're being the person we want to be, regardless of how other people behave. So if you struggle with any of this, it could be an area where you just need to develop more skill in having your own back, or maybe you're in that process, but you just still have a little bit further to go. Okay? Just depends on where you are in your journey. All right, last but not least, let's talk about self-care. What does it look like if you do not have your back with self-care? The most common thing that I hear from my clients, who are all ladies, right? There could be gentlemen who listen to this too, but for the ladies, it's the exhausted mothers and wives who are pouring from a very low, if not empty cup, and starting to feel resentful, right? They're feeling resentful of maybe their partner. They're feeling burnt out. They're feeling exhausted. They feel like they are not present with their family. When they're with their family, they're buffering. They are not caring for themselves. They will give the shirt off their back because they're incredible, loving, selfless women. But at the same time, they're not also making sure that their needs are ever met. And so what this will look like if you don't have your own back is depletion, exhaustion, frustration, disconnection, and oftentimes even disassociation from your own life. And so whether you're a mom or a wife or not, maybe you're not either of those things. If you're not taking care of yourself, you may feel just mentally and emotionally tapped out most of the time. You may feel like you're just on autopilot, surviving. You're not taking care of yourself the way that your mind, your body, and your spirit needs to be taken care of. And one of the biggest things that I will see in this area, or when someone hops on a consult, if they're not taking care of themselves, they're like, I'm constantly anxious. I feel like I'm just on autopilot, like an Energizer bunny all day long, just doing what needs to be done, working on the next and the next. And I even go into kind of a depressive state sometimes. Even if it's not clinical depression, it's just like this feeling of almost emptiness and nothingness, like being surrounded by a lot of people. You maybe even have all the things in your life that quote unquote should make you happy, but somehow you just feel a little off. You don't feel like yourself. You feel blah. And I can relate to this because this is where I was before I hired my coach. I just had let a lot of my unfaced things catch up with me. And I thought I was taking care of myself because I was consistently in therapy and things like that. And I would do things like, let me treat myself to little Starbucks, let me treat myself and get my nails done. But I don't think I really knew what it meant to like nourish my mind, my body, my soul, to really deeply take care of myself. And I think a big piece for me was realizing like that what actually felt like such great self-care was not being a prisoner of my mind anymore. So self-care can vary for different people. Like I always ask people that I talk to, whether on a consult or, clients, I'm like, what are you doing to just nourish yourself? Like, does that mean moving your body, being in the gym, eating a healthy meal, taking a bubble bath, extending the length of your shower and just being super present and grateful? Is it reading books? Is it going to your therapy or counseling appointments? Is it working with a coach? Is it, spending quality time with your family? Is it, maybe shopping or getting your hair and nails done, going and getting a massage, some acupuncture? Like there's so many ways we can care for ourselves. But if you're doing all of the kind of physical things and you still feel like I'm living my life on autopilot, I just feel like, yeah, it feels good to get my hair done or my nails done or take a walk, but I just still feel like a prisoner of my mind, then it may need to go deeper. Your self-care and having your own back may be learning the very skills to get out of that imprisonment within your mind and know that other options and other possibilities are available to you when you get out of your own way, meaning whenever you get out of your own limiting beliefs and the, roadblocks that your mind has, thinking that life is going to be like it is right now for the rest of your life. It's not true. The only way that that's true is if you never work on yourself. And if you never learn new things, and if you stop your self-awareness work and you stop, doing the things that are going to get you to where you want to be. Like if you roll over and say it's never going to change, I'm going to be like this forever, then yeah, that's going to be your experience. But if you're adamant that you're going to create a different life for yourself and that you're going to, get to a place where you feel really good, then what actually needs to happen to care for yourself is to find that person that can help walk you through your limits and to help you see what those limits are and then push them to the side and work on them to create new beliefs and new practices and ways that you're going to nourish and take care of yourself. Okay? So I hope that this helps you. I hope that this helps you kind of understand more of what it means whenever I'm in general on the podcast saying like having your own back. It is an all-encompassing thing of the different categories of our life, right? You can have your own back in your relationships. You can have your own back with your finances and your career. You can have your own back physically, mentally, emotionally, and how you care for yourself. There's so many ways that your ability to have your own back is so important. And really how we do that is we work on our self-awareness to see where we're not having our own back. We work on our mindset because we need to understand what our limiting beliefs are that are keeping us from having our own back. And then where emotional intelligence comes in is we have to understand what emotions are driving all of our behaviors. So sometimes what I share with my clients is we can want something to change, like logically, but there can be underlying emotions trapped in our body that keep us from going for the very thing we logically want. And it all comes down to the safety that our brain is trying to create for us. So your brain doesn't want you to feel like garbage. It doesn't want you to feel anxiety or stress or fear. It doesn't want you to experience failure. It doesn't want anything that's going to be painful or unfamiliar. And when you're working on yourself and you're gaining self-awareness and you're learning how to have your own back and you're letting go of old pieces of yourself, remember that for your human experience, it's like a death of self. You start leaving behind who you were in order to step into who you're meant to be. And when your brain is in that middle place of that's no longer who I am, but I'm not quite where I want to be, it's this weird kind of what I call with my clients the messy middle of I just feel a little bit lost and lonely and confused. And I realize that I need to continue maybe doing this work on myself so that I don't go back to the version of me that I don't necessarily want to be. But I also know that I need a certain level of support to pull myself through and that it's going to feel hard. And so our brain kind of freaks out whenever we're doing this work on ourselves. It really does want to keep us safe, and it believes that the safest way is to hold on to our narratives and to hold on to our stories and to, anticipate what emotions we'll feel if we change, and then make sure it puts up roadblocks so that we never have to feel those emotions so that we don't change. So that's the trickiness of our brain sometimes. And there has to be this really big desire. Like, I don't want to be imprisoned within my mind anymore. I don't want to be stuck like this anymore. And I would say this is, something that foundational work can really start helping you get through. But definitely if you've been doing this work for a while, or you've been listening to the podcast for a really long time, or you've been a client and you just still feel like, ooh, I'm not so sure I always have my own back, the hybrid experience room would be a really great place for you, because not only are we addressing more of the advanced emotional intelligence principles that I don't teach on the podcast, but you have that one-on-one support so that I can really dig in and see where is your mind really trying to F with you and keep you stuck, and why is it trying so hard to keep you in that place? If you've been doing this work for a while, or we've been working together one-on-one, why is it fighting so hard to hold onto your stories, right? So we get into it that way, but then you also get into the group. You get the group experience of hearing other people talk about where they're getting hung up and stuck and where their blind spots are. And sometimes just witnessing other people will create these very strong, mind-blowing epiphanies in your own body. Oh, I didn't even see that this was also a problem for me, but because my peer spoke up about it and how it's showing up in their life, I recognize a piece of my brain that was protecting me from seeing the same thing. So then it busts open a secondary layer of your own self-awareness that maybe you didn't see when we're just talking one-on-one. It took a peer, you witnessing their vulnerability to see another piece of you. I call it mirroring. People will mirror things to us and it'll be mind-blowing. Oh my God, I didn't even see that until they talked about it. And then with the hybrid experience, you get the in-person retreat. So you get to go even deeper with your peers. You get to really just see the enriching experience of what it's like to have emotionally intelligent, really driven women in this way that want to get to the root of, changing what's not working. You get to experience what it's like to have those deeper levels of conversation and get to just experience what it's like to have friendships like that in person, because for a lot of us in our life, we don't have those people. We have our family, our friends, the people we grew up with, maybe even our partner at whatever age we met them and we've been with them forever. And when we start working on ourselves, again, when we get to that messy middle, it can feel very lonely. It can feel like I'm doing all this work on myself, but nobody understands around me. And I can't force all the people around me that love me and that I love to do this work. So I'm just doing it by myself, and people don't understand. And the hybrid experience room gives you a place where they understand because they're walking the same journey. And not only do you get to see them bi-weekly and learn from them, and they get to learn from you, but at the end of it all, at the end of spending 6 months together, you get to collaborate in person. You get to coach with me in person. You get to hang out and have fun and laugh and cry. And we get to do all of these things where you really do feel like you have a room and a tribe of women that you can call who understand, who are going to guide you and support you and love on you and hold you accountable. The standard I hold in the hybrid experience room is we don't get into people's messy situations, even if we can relate, right? It's so important to uphold the standard of I see you, I witness you, I can understand exactly why your brain is keeping you stuck, but let's go back to our tools. And because of that, they're able to not only carry themselves through and have their own back, but have the back of the women that they're with. It's just a really special experience that's very hard to explain until you experience it. So with that being said, right now enrollment is open for the third round of the hybrid experience. If you're unsure if you belong in that room or not, I highly encourage you, send me an email, send me a DM on Instagram, jump on the phone with me on a consult. I do think that room is best for the people who have listened for a long time on the podcast and feel like they're maybe ready for the next step, or they've had at least 3 months of coaching with me where they've really started diving into the foundational skills. I feel like if you've done that, or you're in my Equip Society program, that you're more prepared for that. Or if you've worked with another coach, even if that coach has not been me, if you've done some personal development, mindset coaching, then I also feel like you would be a good fit for that room. But if you're confused, hop on the phone. I'll be very honest with you. I am protective of that room in the sense of I want to make sure that everybody who gets in there is a good fit and in a good place in the inner work they're doing. You don't have to obviously be perfect. You don't have to know everything. You're in there to learn, but it's important that you do know how to hold space for other people. It's important that you do really feel compelled to see yourself on a deeper level and do deeper levels of work. That is a part of what creates such magic in that room and that experience, and such safety to be fully vulnerable and fully raw and, work through that messy middle of I've been doing a good amount of work on myself. I feel a little bit stuck and I don't know why. So if you have questions, reach out about that for the month of February. So February is already almost over. Can you believe that? That is insane. But for the month of February only, you can join this room with a 6-month payment plan. Okay. I know several people have said, I want to be in that room, but I really would struggle to pay in full, or the 3-month payment plan isn't long enough. You guys, this is the last month to get in with a 6-month payment plan. So if this has been what you've needed to put yourself in the room as far as financially, make sure that you do that before February is over, okay? Otherwise, you have a few more months to enroll, and you can reach out to me if you have any more questions, all right? All right, I'll see you guys next week. Can't wait to talk to you. And make sure you follow me on Instagram so you don't miss anything from the retreat that's coming up in about, give or take 7 to 10 days. All right, talk to you soon. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at macyrenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at macyrenee.com anytime you want so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.